If you feel relieved when Valentine's Day is over, it can be confusing to admit, even to yourself. Not because you hate love or because you're cold, but because the day can feel like a spotlight you never asked for. Once it passes, your body relaxes in a way that's hard to explain. The pressure softens, the comparison noise fades. The sense that you're supposed to prove something on a deadline finally disappears, and you can return to whatever your version of closeness looks like when it isn't being measured. That relief usually isn't about romance itself. It's about performance. Valentine's Day can turn private emotions into public signals, where love gets translated into visible evidence. Even if you're in a relationship, the day can quietly imply that your connection needs to be displayed in a specific way. Even if you're single, it can imply that you're being evaluated by what you don't have. Research shows that when social norms become highly visible, people experience more self-monitoring, meaning part of the mind starts tracking how it looks from the outside. That monitoring can feel like tension in the body, not because anything is wrong, but because the nervous system is bracing for interpretation. For some people, the relief comes from escaping comparison. Psychological studies indicate that comparison increases when cues are everywhere, and Valentine's Day is built from cues. Couples, gifts, plans, photos, expectations, even casual conversation that assumes you're participating. If you're already someone who tends to measure yourself through external signals, a day like this can intensify it. You don't have to be insecure to feel it. The environment does a lot of the work for you. It places a shared scoreboard in the background, and even if you don't want to look at it, you know it's there. For others, the relief is about uncertainty and decision pressure. Valentine's Day can create a narrow window where you're expected to get it right. Right gift, right message, right level of effort, right tone. Studies suggest that when people perceive a moment as high stakes socially, their anxiety increases, even if the event is objectively small. The brain treats social approval and social safety as closely linked, so anything that might lead to disappointment or misunderstanding can feel bigger than it should. The relief afterward is your nervous system letting go of the possibility of getting it wrong in public. Sometimes the relief is even more subtle. It's the relief of not being perceived. A day like Valentine's Day can make people's relationship status feel like a label they carry on their forehead. If you're single, you might feel exposed. If you're dating, you might feel judged on how serious it is. If you're in a long-term relationship, you might feel pressure to prove that it's still romantic. If your relationship is complicated, the day can feel like a reminder that complexity doesn't fit neatly into the cultural script. Researchers have found that when people feel seen in a way that doesn't match their reality, it creates internal strain. Relief comes when the script stops playing so loudly. There's also a nervous system element. The difference between authentic connection and forced connection. Some people regulate emotionally through spontaneity and low pressure. They feel closest when affection is natural, not scheduled. When intimacy is placed on a calendar, it can start to feel like demand rather than warmth. Research shows that autonomy is a key ingredient in emotional safety. So when a day implies obligation, even a sweet obligation, it can activate resistance in people who are sensitive to control or expectation. The relief afterward is not rejecting love. It's restoring choice. Another reason the day can feel heavy is that it compresses emotional meaning into symbols. Gifts, gestures, and words become stand-ins for the entire relationship. That's a lot of emotional weight for a single moment. Psychological studies indicate that when people attach high meaning to a narrow signal, they become more reactive to it because it feels like evidence. Did they do enough? Did I do enough? What does this mean about us? The day can turn ordinary insecurities into urgent questions, and when it's over, those questions lose some of their intensity because the deadline is gone. For people who have experienced relationship disappointments, the relief can be protective. Valentine's Day can bring up old memories of feeling left out, not chosen, or not prioritized. Even if your current life is different, the body remembers emotional patterns. Studies suggest that certain seasonal or culturally repeated events can reactivate emotional associations because they act like cues. You may not consciously think about the past, but your nervous system can. Relief is what happens when the cue passes and your system no longer has to be on guard for a familiar kind of hurt. For others, it's not even romantic history. It's the broader mental load. Valentine's Day adds tasks: planning, spending, coordinating, navigating expectations with family, friends, or partners. If you already carry a lot, adding one more social performance can feel draining. Researchers have found that decision fatigue increases when people are forced to make many small choices under social evaluation. The relief afterward can feel like finally stepping out of a crowded room, even if nothing bad happened. All of these experiences can create internal consequences. You might judge yourself for feeling relieved, as if it makes you unromantic or ungrateful. You might compare your reaction to people who seem to love the day and conclude there's something wrong with you. But the relief is often telling you something simple. Your nervous system prefers love without an audience. Or your mind is sensitive to comparison cues. Or you carry pressure around performance and being evaluated. None of those are moral flaws. They're patterns of safety. A calmer way to see it is that Valentine's Day is less about love and more about a particular social version of love. And not everyone's nervous system responds well to that version. Some people experience it as playful and affirming. Others experience it as exposure, pressure, or forced symbolism. Feeling relieved when it's over doesn't mean you don't want connection. It can mean you want connection that feels private, flexible, and real, without being turned into a test. If this felt familiar, you can like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who also feels a quiet sense of relief once Valentine's Day passes.